live.
Will it always take a second?
Shouldn't take that long.
No, it says waiting. Yeah, I'm kind of good. Oh, there you go. It just had Mark sitting down. That's the way. Good? All good? Okay, so if we could, I'd like to call the January 13th meeting to order. It is 6:31 p.m. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any additions or amendments to the agenda?
Yes, I would like to add 7.1 under personnel, under our substitute list, Sydney Craven.
And I'd like to remove executive session. Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll second.
Any discussion further? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve the minutes of December 9th, 2021 regular meeting.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consent agenda is 3.1 through 4.3. That's treasurer's report, consideration of claims, transportation report, cafeteria report, mileage reimbursement, external audit, and policy, and extracurricular advisor, and spring musical advisor.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Discussion. I think we can follow that.
So I'm just going to point out the obvious extracurricular advisor and my relationship. We've been told that that's not a conflict of interest, but it does not affect my ability to vote on these points. And since it's wrapped up in everything else, I just want to point it out verbally.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Do we need to talk about the policies at all? These are the second reads, right?
Correct.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I didn't have any
thank you.
questions. Yeah.
A good chunk.
So, yeah, that's it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That brings us to our nightlight. Mr. Reza?
Sure. So it's my honor and privilege to present this month's nightlight to a community member who has worked tirelessly in his role as president of the Hamilton Emerald Foundation to fulfill their mission of promoting the positive educational, social-emotional, and behavioral development of the children attending HCS. Andrew Coddington has been a tremendous supporter of HCS in his role as president of the Hamilton Emerald Foundation. Under his leadership and in collaboration with past presidents and fellow board members, the foundation has granted over $515,000 to support programs at HCS since 2006. Andrew, we can't thank you enough for your service to our district. You'll be forever indebted for your work with the Hamilton Emerald Foundation, and you'll be missed as you pass on the leadership duties of the foundation to our new president, Matt Haynes. So thank you very much. We appreciate you, and we can't say thank you enough for what you've done to our district in support of our program. So if you'd come up and accept our February nightlight, we appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Over this one? Yeah. May I have pictures?
Right?
My monthly joke.
Yeah, go ahead.
Smile.
It's in the eyes, you can see it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Andrew, don't feel you have to stay. Go enjoy your evening. Laura, you got it.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank you,
Thank you
Andrew.
so much, Andrew. And that brings us to one of our other participants of this evening, is Mrs. Roy. She's in her curriculum.
Hello. So I'm here to talk to you tonight a little bit about the summer curriculum grant. I wrote for Fact 7, which is Family and Consumer Sciences, which we already have one for the 8th grade level, and that 99% of that is we're in the kitchen and the kids are cooking and they're learning different techniques. Fact 7 is a little bit different, so, but just to give you a little background, any of the facts classes are part of the exploratories. So 7th and 8th graders spend about 10 weeks in each of the exploratories. So for 7th graders, Fact 7 is part of the leadership, agriculture, and art are the 4 that they'll rotate through for the year. So what I decided is I obviously went to New York State Ed's website first to kind of see what I needed to incorporate into the class. I also talked with some of the other teachers to make sure that I didn't overlap, because no child wants to sit through listening to the same thing over and over again. So one of the areas that needed to be focused on was the kids kind of getting to know themselves a little bit better. So the first thing we do is we do a class pizza. So this is where the kids, we start to build a community for those 10 weeks, and the kids create a slice of pizza, and that's where they put all the things on it about themselves. And then we take each slice of pizza and we turn it into a giant pizza that hangs on the wall. And it's just a way for them to kind of see all the differences, similarities they have with their classmates. People who they may not normally hang around with. So it gives them that opportunity to get to know each other. The next thing we jump into is a student strength survey. And this is where I like to have the kids take a look at what are their natural talents? What are those things that just come naturally to them? And I ask them to kind of think about it. They have the opportunity with this survey to either draw or write their answers, whatever they're comfortable with, and they can mix and match. What are their strengths in and out of school, the things they struggle with, and then I want them to kind of think about what their dream career is. And then one of the things that is important is how do their natural talents and strengths relate to the career that they're choosing at that point, that dream career. The next thing we look at with the kids is their SMART survey. What I'd like kids to do is think about themselves, not comparing them to themselves to others, but to take a look at their areas of strength. Their area of strength. What are they good at? And not comparing it to anybody else. So they take another survey, and this survey takes a look at 8 different types of SMART. And it goes through word, math, logic, visual, body, and you can kind of take a look at all of that. But what happens is the kids end up with their own, I'll show you some of the work that they did. So they end up with something like this. And each of the colors represent an area of SMART for them. So what happens is we take all of our people, and near the pizza that we already made, we kind of build a community, taking a look at what are all the different types of SMART that are out there, and where, what does it mean for them? So they can take a look at, I know it's kind of big up there, sorry. It's like a giant person looking at you there. But this is our class SMARTs. And we put them all up, they can take a look at it. But most importantly, they can see, okay, so maybe math's not my thing, but, maybe nature is my thing. And we don't always necessarily talk about nature or our body SMART. So it's important for them to kind of take a look at that when they think about themselves. Okay. Moving on. Then what we do, since we've done a lot with themselves, we start looking at career exploration. And this takes the majority of the time because there's a lot of little assessments that they do. We take a look at goals, what goals they're setting for themselves on a daily basis, those little things, and then, you know, maybe in a month, maybe in a year, when they graduate high school, where do they want to be? And then we take a look at their values and how do all those things fit together? How do what I value, along with what are my interests, how do all those things fit together to help me find the career that I want to be in? One of the uncomfortable things that we talk about sometimes is just a small snippet in the classes. Can I make it in the pros? So we talk a little bit about, okay, I want to be a pro basketball player, which is a fantastic dream, but what's my backup plan? So we do go through the numbers. How many kids play high school sports? How many kids make it in the pros? And then if I can't do that, how can I take my passion for basketball and turn it into careers? So we look at all of those different careers. I use a website called mynextmove.org, and there's a 64-question career interest survey that they take. And what they end up doing is the results give them an idea of what they should be doing. Let me find. So after they're done taking the survey, this is what they end up with. And it doesn't give them specific careers. It gives them career areas that they can look at. And one of the reasons I like this website is that everything's in one place. So if I scored high for social, I can then go into the website in another area, click on social, and it'll give me a list of careers that fall into the social category. So they take all of this information, we narrow it down to about 5 careers that they just kind of look at. Then we narrow it down to 2, and that's when they start to dig a little deeper. Does it relate to my values? Does it relate to what I find important, the things I like to do? And then what I ask them to do is narrow it down to 1 career that they want to really dig into and do some research on. So what I ended up doing is just taking the website and breaking it down for them on this paper or Google Doc that they use, and they just go in and find specific information about the career that they chose. What do they have to do on the job? What's the pay? What's the outlook for the career? Is there going to be a need for this or nothing? Is there going to be no need for this career in the future? And I wanted to show you what some of the kids have created. I asked them to take the information, their final project is to create a business card for that career. So they take all of the information, they have to create a card that's going to be visually pleasing. So this student did orthodontist. This student did a psychology professor. Sometimes they like to hand draw. I have a lot of artists. So this person wanted to be a photographer. And you can see, you know, what do they need for equipment? What's their level of education, salary, job outlook? And then they go through and it gives them the opportunity to kind of learn a little bit more about what that job entails. Some kids come out of it saying, yep, still want to do that. Other kids are like, nope. And it could be the money, it could be, you know, they look at what the job duties are every day. And they're like, that doesn't really interest me. So once we get through all the careers, then we dive into the kitchen. And let me get all my stuff here. Here we go. So we finish with the career research. And we go into, oops, sorry about that. Food, kitchen, skills, and safety. We kind of jump in with a little bit of, I give them some questions about food facts, and they have to find the answers. Why do crackers have holes? Why is milk white? All of those kinds of things, just to kind of get them thinking about food. They do a survey for me just so I can get a handle on food allergies and what their skill levels are in the kitchen, their comfort levels. We cover a little bit with kitchen safety, meaning how to prevent cuts, how to prevent fires, burns, those types of things. We do a little bit with keeping food safe, cross-contamination, what does that mean, bacteria in food. They do a project called the 12 most unwanted bacteria. So they're each in groups, they're each given bacteria, and they have to learn about the bacteria, how it can cause an illness, how to prevent the illness, probably the most important thing, and then they present that to the rest of the class. The last thing we cover is probably the most important thing, but how to read a recipe. And we usually break down 3 or 4 recipes and kind of go through the order, ingredients, that kind of thing. Doubling a recipe and having a recipe, I know that, I have my phone, so I can do it on my phone, and so can they. But I think it's also important for them to kind of do it the old-fashioned way, just for the fun of math. Then we do a cupcake experiment, and this is where they're going to take a recipe for cupcakes. One recipe will be normal, second recipe they'll leave out an egg, third recipe they'll leave out the baking powder, and then the fourth recipe they leave out the oil. So they can kind of see what happens, what each ingredient, its importance to the recipe, so that we're measuring accurately and we're making sure we follow the instructions. And then the last thing, just for fun, they make lunchbox pizza, which is just a quick and easy recipe for pizza, for them to be able to get in the kitchen a little bit more and cook. So that's Fact 7 in a nutshell, a quick nutshell. Any questions?
So does every 7th grader take that class?
Yeah.
It's great, right? Very well said. Are they, how comfortable were they with the self part?
Some more than others.
Yeah.
Some kids are really aware, this is what I want to do. This is why I want to do it. And others are a little shaky, which is, I think, for that age, is absolutely appropriate. So that's interesting to kind of see where they go with the career research.
Were there surprises in terms of strengths? Like were the strengths turned up? Were some of them surprised at strengths?
Yeah, some kids, they look at that one piece, that graph, and they're like, that doesn't fit me. And then if you kind of break it down a little bit more for them, it helps them to kind of see, okay, that does fit me more than I thought it did. So same with values, taking a look at what you find important. That's really eye-opening for a lot of kids as well.
What do you use for the values? Sorry.
I think I actually have it here. Oh, yeah, I do. So this one I found online, and quite frankly, this is a work in progress, the class. So the first group that I had, they were the guinea pigs,
right,
figuring out what worked, what didn't work, and they were great about it.
Yeah.
Then the second group kind of streamlined it a little bit more, still figuring out what works, what doesn't work. This value survey I like because it's pretty, it's easy to follow, and the kids seem to gravitate to this one a little bit better. I had another one, but it was too complicated.
Yeah.
I was wondering, how do they come up with those values?
Yeah, and this one kind of goes through. So this one is kind of talking about, this one's a little more general. So what were you proud of?
Yeah.
When you're talking about values, I don't necessarily like the ones where you have to pencil in, agree, disagree.
Yeah.
Values, I like them to be a little bit more open-ended.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And those first 2 questions are like,
Yeah.
I see how you can get some information out of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting.
It's nice to have kids learning the everyday things,
Mhm.
things that are gonna matter in
Yeah.
the long term. So how to do the recipe is
Yeah.
really exciting to hear that everybody's
Yeah.
getting a chance to do that.
Yep.
I mean, not everybody gets to do that at home.
Right.
I don't tend to let my kids go because it's a pain in the neck.
Right.
I do at my
Oh, absolutely.
at my mother's they do.
Yeah.
But they don't at my house because it's too much work for me,
Yep.
right? So, you know, it's nice to know that they get a chance to do it here and kind of understand some basics behind
Yep.
things too. And not feel rushed by your mother.
Right.
Who wants to just clean up behind you.
Or rush by the school clock.
Right, well, maybe there's that.
No, the 7th grade, the facts class, it's nice, it's scheduled in the hour cell, so that works out really well.
Yeah.
We have a little bit more time when we do get in the kitchen.
Very good. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Roy.
And I can add just a little bit more. So this replaced keyboarding.
Mhm.
And so we were looking at Part 100 regs, Commissioner's Part 100 regs, and trying to fulfill those regulations. And with keyboarding, you know, the kids were getting computers in their hands so much sooner and starting to pick up habits. We're looking at ways, okay, maybe they should start working at that at a younger age and what could take its place. So I thank you, Kathy, for putting this together because, you know, we went to Kathy and asked her, all right, we want to do something different. She jumped all over it and put this together for us. And kind of like what you were saying, and my second oldest son, it wasn't in the 7th grade group, but with the 8th grade group, I was shocked when he turned the stove on and started cooking something. I was like, woof, woof, eh? but did it, you know? And like you were saying, you're talking about those skills that the students are going to learn long term. You know, being able to make yourself a meal and then understanding the ingredients and the health benefits of homemade meals. You know, that's great they're able to do that. So thank you very much, Cam, for all your work.
Well, I'll
It's been
just
fun. It's
add
really
one
been
more
fun.
thing too.
It's a fun class to teach.
As we redo our fax room through the capital project and expand that, this hopefully will lay the foundation for some upper level electives, international cooking, whatever. You know, Matt and I did a presentation in Mr. Bain's architecture class, DDP class, about the capital project, and that was one of the questions from one of the upper level students, are we going to have the opportunity to use that space? So I think this is exciting to be able to lay the foundation for future courses.
And the self and the values work is great foundation for identity work, which is part of what's coming too.
And then with the careers, you know, having to look at that because very soon they're making their high school credit-bearing schedules.
Yeah.
And they're starting to make those decisions on different pathways that they're going to be taking towards graduation. And the addition of that exposure in 7th grade really helps out the counseling office when they're trying to help students develop those future plans.
And we're trying to work with the counseling office so that all of the surveys, all of the things that the students do in 7th grade will end up in the file in the counseling office. Jean and I are working together to try to make sure that that's where it ends up.
So they have a little more help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can take a look at, oh, that's funny, that's what I felt like in 7th grade.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you for coming. And you're welcome to stay, but.
But I can go?
But have a wonderful night.
Okay, thank you.
Kathy, you got a comment over here. You want to see it?
No, it's probably from my husband.
It is.
I'll see him when I
Very
get
positive.
Thanks, Jenny. Wonderful. All right, so that brings us to community participation. Please remember the 3-minute timeline. If you'd like to come forward, you're more than welcome to. And there's one comment online, but it was to Kathy, so we're good there. Thank you, Danny, for watching. So if there's anything else, if somebody would type now, that'd be great. And if you'd like to come forward, you may. No.
Mom, this is not part of the
All
plan.
right. So that brings us to personnel. Again, if somebody is writing, keep writing, please, and we'll get to it in the next participation point. We have a resignation. I need a motion to accept the resignation of Adam Excel as the maintenance helper, effective January 7th. Sorry, with sincere appreciation for services rendered to the district. I know.
I'll second.
would be an executive session. All those in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the appointment of Johanna Call, thank you, as probationary office assistant 2, effective January 31st, as recommended by the secretary principal and superintendent.
I'll move. Second.
Discussion? An executive session most likely, but all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And sorry, I'm awful with names, so it's not to you, just generally speaking. A motion to approve the appointment of Stephen Dunkel as per diem long-term substitute science teacher with tentative dates of January 10th through January 28th as recommended by the secondary principal and superintendent.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Discussion? And we just have somebody out for health reasons.
Correct.
Correct.
Yes.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I have a motion to approve Colin Manwaring, Dwight Putman, and Sydney Craven to the substitute list as recommended by the secretary principal and superintendent.
I'll move. Second.
Discussion? Thank you.
Thank you.
We need lots of subs, and we appreciate you guys willing to join the crew. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I need a motion to appoint, for the appointment of Christopher Rogers as tenured school district leader, Director of Technology, effective December 20th, 2021, following the successful completion of his probationary period, as recommended by the superintendent.
I'll move. Second.
Any discussion?
Congratulations, and thank you for all you do.
Congratulations.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We do have cake, but we'll keep going at the moment, and we can have cake in a bit. So congratulations.
Okay.
I need a motion to approve the recommendation of the committees on special education and preschool special education.
I'll move. Second.
Discussion would be an executive session. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I need a motion to approve the revised shared decision-making plan as recommended by the steering committee and superintendent.
I'll move. I'll second.
Any discussion?
Was there just one change?
It was really just
I
about
only
pronouns,
saw, I only
right?
saw one strike through, and it was for a pronoun.
It was
Yeah, that was,
de-binarying the pronouns is, I know that's not a word, but,
But it is tonight.
but you get the point.
Non-binary.
We tried to review it with a lens of DEI and make sure that there was nothing there that was particularly gendered or particularly
Gotcha.
cultured or, and if we missed something, we're open to learning, but
So there were no major changes?
there were no major changes. It was really just trying to review it from that lens.
Okay.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. All
Thank
those
you.
in favor?
Aye.
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 Mid-year superintendent review discussion of me. In a few moments, if we didn't already, I think we got it already. I sent you all an email. Schedule send is wonderful. Bill has finished his mid-year. It's time for us to do the other piece. They're due to me on the 31st. It's in that email. I will harass you the weekend before and the day before, if you haven't done that. And then in the next meeting, we will discuss. The Google Word doc that's in there is to help you with your template, because we don't use the system for our mid-year. Bill does, but we don't, because it's just written. So
is there a Google Doc that we should copy
Yes.
and then send back to you?
yeah.
Okay.
When keep it in Google Docs in your school account. When you're done, share it with me and me only, and then we'll go from there. If you need help with anything, of course, yeah, happy to help. And like I said, that email is in your inbox a little bit earlier than it needed to be. So I just wanted to make sure that we all knew that Bill was all set for that piece. Great. Okay. If you have specific questions that prevent you from finishing the evaluation, please ask Bill. But if there are questions that can be discussed during the review of the evaluation, save them and we'll do them in group. I need a motion to combine with Casanova for girls lacrosse in the spring of 2020, of the 2021-2022 school year, as recommended by the athletic director and superintendent.
I'll move.
Second.
Discussion?
Always wanna know. How many?
We have one female student that wants to play lacrosse.
Great.
Participated last year.
Glad. Wonderful. Give me a couple.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That brings us to policies. We've got first read. Travis, I turn it to you.
Let's see here, give me a second. So, we're asking to rescind policy 2010 school district and board of education legal status. It slightly overlaps the other policy on here, Board of Education Authority. It's not a required policy. There's no reason to make it a regulation. For comparison, very few schools have a policy such as this. Simply put, we don't need it. Now, policy 2011, Board of Education Authority. We eliminated the first section of the original policy. Slight adjustments to the second section, which is now section 1. The last section is more to the point. We basically cleaned it up, made changes that have happened in the time, nothing alarming. 2030, qualifications of voters. It's still a 2-section policy, however, what our current policy has for section 2, we included in section 1, and we included a new section 2 that says voters attest that they meet these qualifications by providing their signature, printed name, and address at the time of voting. Voter rolls may be requested and challenged by qualified voters in the district. This is going to be, it'll help this policy achieve.
Great.
And that's it.
Wonderful. Great. Cool. Thank you. Administrator report. Well, we might as well start with Chris.
Do you want me to come up here?
Whatever you like.
Whatever I like, okay. It's been a busy time since we last met with each other. But it hasn't been busy in terms of working on my yearly goals much, as you can see in my report. Some things that we were able to get accomplished. I have developed a relationship with model schools this year, which is something that was one of my goals and something that we really wanted to do. This was a line item from BOCES that we pay for every year, but we hadn't really used. So I've developed a relationship with the technology integration specialist over there, and the teachers have really sort of taken to her, which I'm really happy about. So far she's met with our teachers twice. The first time she came and they just did some planning and brainstorming. The second time that she came, she observed what they had planned and offered some advice in terms of how to punch it up some. We are going to meet with her at least one more time, hopefully more, so that's been really, really positive. I did get to spend a little time in the high school office, as you know, and it was really, really fun. It was nice to interact with the students in a different way than I do in my technology director job. So I'm happy that I was able to step in and do that. We are continuing to work with Clever towards making a more paperless environment here. It's been a big goal of mine. It is moving a little slower than I'd like. I'm on top of my coordinator there with that company, we were supposed to have a working, our first working form by the end of January. I suppose January is not over yet, but it'll be gone fast. So I want to make sure that they meet that deadline for us. But again, with the goal of reducing as much paper as is practical. I think we've gone a long way towards doing that with the ways we're continuing to increase the use of School Tool for parents and for kids. Kids are now meeting with their counselors and scheduling their next year's classes using School Tool, which saves the counselors a great deal of time. So I think it's a natural step for us. Something that is not really fun, but something that we need to do is we're going to be required to submit the CRDC, which is the Civil Rights Data Collection. I don't know if you guys know anything about this. Basically, the federal government is collecting information about a whole bunch of really minute details about the school. It was supposed to happen every other year. Last year was supposed to be a year it obviously got nixed, so we're going to have to do it this year and the next year. So that's a tedious process of parsing incredibly strange combinations of information. Things like, how many male preschoolers are, you know what I mean? Like, there's lots of little pieces of information that we have to parse out. So we're working on that. That's it.
Great. Questions for Chris?
That last part, is that part of the No Child Left Behind Act?
Is it? Matt,
No,
do you know?
it's done underneath the U.S. Department of Education, the Civil Rights Data Collection. It's technically not required, but it is if you receive federal funds.
Right.
Which I don't think there's many K-12 public school districts in the country that don't receive federal funds, so
Yeah.
it's more like.
They ask things about enrollment. They ask things about classes we offer. They ask things about sports. They ask things about your connectivity. Tons and tons of information they want.
Have fun.
Working
Do
on
they
it.
ever provide anything meaningful back?
Well, this is
Well, yes, but.
this is actually my first year going through it.
Okay.
Since I've been here. The
Not-
last time that you and
That's hard to answer. I'm sure they do, not of any relevance to us.
Okay.
it probably helps them make decisions
Yeah.
about where funding goes. That's it.
So with health and safety, we did have to, an FFA weekend trip in Osagachi was canceled. And we also canceled a day trip to Expo out in Syracuse with COVID-related concerns. And before break, we asked teachers to be ready, to be prepared for a sudden transition if it were to present itself. So I put together a guidance document for teachers kind of describing the expectations, different scenarios, okay, for 1 day, 2 days, or a long term, what things might look like. Just to be prepared, be proactive. Teachers have been working on a Google Doc where they're listing content and skills that maybe they omitted or didn't really get to touch upon as much as they wanted to last year due to our hybrid schedule. A lot of the information, I'm proud of what we did last year because I think that we did a really good job, and I think that even with the hybrid schedule, even with all the different layers of issues and problems we had, a lot was still done. And so I'm really happy with some of the stuff that I'm seeing. And then if you look at last year's scores on written exams, APs and stuff, we did pretty well. 5-week progress reports were available right before break. So we're going through those and making sure that we're putting supports in place for people who need that. The counseling office has been working really hard on the schedule, so hopefully we're going to be able to get a master schedule put together sooner than we have in previous years, which will help us to make some decisions moving forward with the classes offered. Other things, January, they have canceled the January Regents exams. The FAQ just came out, so we're going to be looking to that to help guide us with, we did have a few students that were planning on taking Regents exams. For some of them, this may be good because now they can just get the credit. If you were out of state and you transferred into New York State, but you took an equivalent course already, that Regents requirement would now be waived for that individual. But we still have to look at the FAQ carefully to look at some of our other students that maybe we're looking at some credit recovery pieces. So more to come on that. I just had a principals meeting yesterday, and January Regents was a big topic. They haven't been hearing anything about 3 through 8, so they're assuming that that's going to be on like normal. End of year Regents exams, that there's still some unsure. Will it look like what we did last year, where we're only giving a few of the exams, not all of the exams they've traditionally given? So a lot of decisions still need to be made there. But so as it goes and more information comes out, we'll share that with you. Started planning for construction projects, so thinking about how we're going to keep things going when people start coming in and tearing things apart. So working on that. Class coverage, you know, we have some subs that we've hired today, but it is still a daily issue. It takes a lot of time. It's frustrating because there are things we want to do, you know, but we're getting through it, and everybody has been great, you know, people jumping in, being flexible, helping to cover. So, you know, I'm very thankful for the sport, but I can't wait till it's done. You know, discipline, it's interesting. You know, a lot of time is spent with discipline, and it's not that it's like crazy or we're seeing a huge uptick in issues. It's just, it seems like things might, and I think a lot of it is, you know, pandemic related, they're more complicated. You know, so it's more complicated situations that take a lot more working through. And so that's another piece that's taking a lot of time. As you're all aware, we have some basketball news that might be coming up, so stay tuned for that. Very excited. We did have 5 students participate in Model UN. So they went to the Central New York Model UN. It was online conference this past weekend. One of the students did get an award for best position paper. And out of the 5 students, 4 of them, it was their first time. So they had a great time, and they really enjoyed it, and they're excited about the next one. Mathletics, they placed second place last Saturday. The team remains second place overall. Their last meet will be February 5th. Middle School Student Council is planning a Spirit Week, so more information on that coming up. The junior class has already started talking about, you know, prom, you know, fundraising, and coming up with ideas for, you know, if prom's if we're going to try to put together a traditional prom, or are we looking at different ideas. So those conversations have started. And then the last thing I have, National Honor Society, National Junior Honor Society finished up a hygiene drive in December, and they donated 1,200 items to Hamilton, and that averages 16 items per member. So that was a pretty successful drive for them.
Thank you.
Well, that brings us to Heather then.
So I'm just going to highlight some of the important things from the board report. The first thing I'll start with is restorative practices. So we have, I have spent a lot of time individually working with students over the last month, preventively, as well as, you know, addressing some issues in terms of social, emotional needs that students are presenting with. So I had listed some of the different things that I've done. A lot of time spent on the unstructured time of school, cafeteria, recess, really trying to focus with students on things, taking control of what they would like to do at recess, creating their own rules for games and so forth, and that's been really successful. Additionally, I've utilized the counseling department strategy of using a lot of social stories, and especially with younger students. I think that that is also, I have a nice collection of them now for different issues that arise. Another thing is happened this morning is during the regional meeting with the elementary principals through BOCES. I had a phone call last week where I was invited to volunteer a problem of practice, and it actually really turned out to be a great one. So I spent some time, and I asked for some different ideas school-wide about restorative practices and from lots of different levels. So I had the opportunity to hear from all of the regional elementary principals for about a half an hour, and they gave me just lots and lots of ideas. So that was very, I'm glad I picked that topic. There are a lot that I could have chosen, but that was really helpful. So they gave me lots of names of programs, books to read, contacts, different ideas that they do in their schools, and I'm excited to dig into that. So that was really effective use of time. We also have been taking a look at the data that's coming back in terms of student growth, and it's really exciting. So I'm here to say, I remember, I think, a fall meeting where I was a little like, ooh, feeling a little nervous about it, but we had a data team meeting with the reading department, and so what a data team meeting is that reading department meets with all the K-5 teachers, and special education does as well. And they compile the spreadsheet in advance of the meeting where they have every single elementary student in our building, along with their Famis and Pannell benchmarking and the NWEA score for students grade 2 through 5, as well as any additional assessments that they've done. And then they also put on there all of the different interventions that the students receive, and then really looked at their progress monitoring data to see if they were receiving appropriate interventions. So as a former reading teacher, I just love this day, and I appreciate all of the hard work that the reading department did, because it does require hours worth of compilation of the data in order to make it a very smooth transition through the 250 students in our building. So that was great, and we were really happy to do that. We saw a lot of good growth that way. And then just kind of since I wrote the board report, we are in the process of doing the second administration of the NWEA, and I know that there have been a lot of excited folks that have come back with saying, oh my goodness, look at this, and in particular the math RTI teacher has preliminary results from not all of the students, but a good number of students that have shown really great growth, and he's really, really excited about that, as am I, as are the classroom teachers and the kids themselves. So that's really, so it'll be interesting to see how that's going, but it really looks very positive. As a matter of fact, every single one of the students that we have results from has made growth, so that's really great. Curriculum-wise, some really fun things are happening in science and social studies, which I'm excited about. Fourth grade teachers, so everybody, kindergarten through fifth grade, signed up to have an OHM BOCES curriculum kit, and fourth grade has already really dug right into theirs and have started it. Last year, second grade is the grade level that kind of got us going on the OHM science kits. And so fourth grade is really on board, really, really positive feedback from this grade level and other grade levels in second grade in particular that has tried it. They just love the fact that it's completely aligned to standards. It's very user-friendly for teachers. All of the materials come in the kit, so they don't really spend any time hunting for paper cups that are 4 ounces or whatever it might be. So very, very positive results, and I think they're already clamoring to have those come back again next year. So I think because fourth grade started using the science kits, they also discovered that OHM offers a social studies curriculum that is a digital program. Again, it's updated yearly to align with the standards, and they really would like to try that as well, some different units in social studies. So social studies one is not as there's not as many materials, but it's more digital resources that are aligned with standards. So they're going to be trying those out, so that's really exciting curriculum-wise. And then report cards, so it's already the second quarter is coming to a close, and report cards are coming out. The steering team has, we worked together to create 3 different surveys. And so there'll be a survey that goes out to parents, teachers, and students. And they're slated to be sent out at the end of January. So we were just talking about that at our faculty meeting a little bit, and are excited to get feedback from all different perspectives about the report cards, and would really like to look at that this summer and ways to improve them and revise them. So I'll just throw out a couple of other things that are coming. We are looking at an author visit coming up, Susicle's coming up, and so that is a elementary, middle school, high school combined event, and so I'm really excited to see that. After school program, I'll tell you more about. We're going to get ready to start that, so the next board meeting, I'll give you an update on that. We're also looking at HCS Reads, which the PTO has kindly offered to sponsor, so we're forming a committee for that. And I've also been doing some discussion and have a couple of really good leads on an assembly program for our elementary in person, so that might be really fun too. So I'll give you all of those kinds of updates next time. That's it from the elementary.
I just have a quick one.
Yep.
It's the first year with AM, PM pre-K.
Yep.
I'm just kind of wondering, as the school year's gone, how is that working?
Yeah. So I think we're making it work. The feedback has been that we really wish that there was more time to spend with the preschool students. By the time they come at 8 o'clock and have breakfast, and then by the time they're packing up at 10:30, it just really isn't enough time. So I think that's the biggest feedback has been like that we really wish that we had more time to do more with students. So
Now in the past, when it was just AM,
yeah.
I think it was invite only, but a couple days a week, some students were invited to stay the full day.
Right. So in the past it went to 11:30. So it was long. Yeah. So it was longer than the 10:40. So even just that half day part was longer. But then there were some students that had an extended day. And that was really nice. And that's another thing that we're really, I think, missing this year for some of the students that would benefit from an extended day.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Can we talk a little bit about what we're exploring?
Sure.
The pre-K. Do you want to talk about that? Just the exploration part?
No, you can.
Oh, well,
Just kinda.
we're just exploring the idea of expanding what we have this year. Knowing what Heather said, what are some different ways we could have a longer day or perhaps a full day for some kids, kind of like what you're alluding to, Travis, kind of getting back to that and maybe even a little bit more, depending on, it's going to depend on resources that we have and all that sort of stuff, but we're definitely committed to trying to expand that. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you both.
Kevin?
Well, that was it.
Your turn. Can you get it short, Kevin, or no?
No, the big thing that I'm working at, first of all, I want to say that, like what Mark and the other administrators have echoed, and Chris and I were having this conversation earlier, this year has been a challenge with COVID and lots of SEL kind of stuff going on, discipline-wise. So that, a lot of the projects that we want to get to are kind of keep getting put over here. But there are things that we are still able to do amidst all of this kind of keeping things moving in a way. So one of the big things that I'm looking at with my team is that what I really outlined almost my entire report on. And that's a commitment to our special education community and trying to bring them into a more inclusive environment. Through the DEI training that we've done, one of the big things we learned about was how having kids in the general education classroom, special education students, largely benefits them in so many ways. We typically think, okay, special education, they need an extra either supplemental support or a totally different program. They do need a curriculum that is modified, 100%. But there are ways you can do that within the classroom that provide students a greater opportunity to be with their peers, learn from their peers, be immersed in a curriculum that's a little more rigorous, and still have the supports that they need in special education. So we're looking really strongly at a co-teaching model. We'll probably have to start small. We did have some co-teaching in the middle school and high school in the past. You know, we believe in that model. There's a trick to it though, and the trick is that it does require, in a small district our size, some really strategic planning to make that work so that your resources are being used in a way that's efficient and effective. And by efficient and effective, I mean, well, efficient, when you take when you put students in a general education classroom setting that are normally outside, when they're in that outside placement, you can put a lot of special ed kids together. The teacher can differentiate all this for the students who are in there. Now you put the students back in the general education classroom, and now you might have one student in first grade, one student in second, one student in this class, one student in that. How does that teacher get around to service all of those students? And by effective, I mean, in order for a good co-teaching model to work, you really need a common planning time with the special education teacher and the general education teacher so that they're modifying curriculum and doing that together. It doesn't work when you're co-teaching in 5 different classrooms for 5 different grade levels because you can't common plan and put together that. So where the model works really strong is a district, I've never been to Canastone. I've talked to the person in my position there, but they've done it. A school that size works really well because they have 6 special education teachers in the elementary, 1 assigned to each grade. Okay, so now you have the special education students in the general education setting. The teacher can stay there all day with the teacher, plan with her, develop the whole day. They can go to specials, and they're there consistently. Here, we have 3 special education teachers in the elementary for 6 grades, 4 for the upper grades. It just stretches our resources. Like, you can't be terribly effective that way. So we're looking at some really out-of-the-box thinking and making it work. One of the easiest ways to make it work is to start small. So we're looking at possibly like a 3, 4, 5 start, or maybe expand it a little bit if we use our resources a little differently. And we have to do that planning now because in order to have this, you have to put on the IEPs for next year, and we're going to do co-teaching. So it has to be planned out now. How much time is the co-teaching going to be? How many days a week? What subject areas? And the annuals are starting now. I have my first annual today. And they'll go straight through until it's done in May. So we have to be that far in front of it in order to make it work for next year. Of course, the budget hasn't passed, so you don't even know what kind of resources you're going to have. So you're kind of, just had to plan out in front and plan for everything. I've met with administrators in different buildings. I'm going to have a visit to a school. I have another meeting tomorrow with Brian over at Madison. We're really trying to brainstorm. They're kind of in the same place we are with it. They got ahead of it last year, but they really didn't get much into it. So he's helping with that. So Rebecca Coppin, our BOCES, is helping me. She's going to reach out to some schools in New York State that have really effective models and help us to go visit. For it to be effective, there's a lot of things that have to happen. You don't want a teacher coming in and standing next to the general education teacher. It just doesn't work that way. So there's a lot of planning. That's the big thing. Any questions about that?
I do. It's a clarifying question. Sure. Please correct me if I have these terminologies wrong. What's the difference between consult teaching and co-teaching?
So
in terms of responsibilities of a teacher.
So generally a consult, and you're referring to direct consult, I'm guessing. Indirect would be the special education teacher meets with her during her planning and says, this is how you should teach your special education. That's indirect. Direct would be when she goes into the room and works directly with the students. There's not a planning co-teach. she would go in and help the teacher to modify the curriculum, but the teacher, the general education teacher is usually doing that. In a consult model, they generally go in multiple rooms, and they're there to support the students with their work within the room that the general education teacher is providing.
Now, do we do consult, direct consult, or, I guess my question is, what are we doing now?
We do some direct, that's the issue with a small school. You've got to kind of,
Yeah,
you know, there's a spectrum, okay, of services, and by spectrum I mean there's a least restrictive item and a most restrictive. Like our 12-1-1 rooms would be our most restrictive, and our least restrictive would be the indirect consult, which we do some of that. We have a little bit of direct, not much, mostly because that takes a teacher, and I use the example in the high school, that has to go into one room for one student, for one cell. Now, that's for the whole week. Now that teacher can only meet, that takes one of her 6 cells away. So now, theoretically, she could work with just 6 students, going in this classroom and then in this classroom. So in order to make that work, you kind of have to commit to it and kind of bunch kids in the groups in a district our size.
so
that
for
when the
direct, for direct consult teaching model, is the general classroom teacher solely responsible for all the kids in the class at that time?
It's a shared kind of, of record, it's shared. You can do it either way, to be honest with you, but the most effective way I think of doing it is a shared. So you can actually do that school tool that they share the responsibility.
That's helpful, and the co-teaching model looks very exciting, so good luck, and I fully understand all the struggles that you'll face.
Right. It actually works really well here because we do a workshop model. And one of the things in the research that I've been learning is that you have to have the right model for it to work. You can't go in where the teacher's lecturing from up front. It's not an effective model. Effective model is the teacher and the co-teacher. They go in, they do the mini lesson, which we do in a workshop model. They each kind of give an example. They model something for their students, and then they go, the students are gone to do independent work or small group work. Now your special education teacher can take 3 of her students in the back of the room, while the regular ed teacher takes 3 of her students over here. They work on similar interests and needs, and then, you know, so they're all together in the same room, getting the same kind of instruction, but it gets differentiated when they move off into.
You know, the co-teaching, the special education teacher can work with the general education student too.
They could, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's very exciting.
I had 2 questions, actually. The sort of stepwise approach that you're talking about, building the co-teaching model, you mentioned the number of special education teachers that we have. This step that you're imagining for next year, now that you're doing IEPs, do you imagine that we're going to need more special education teachers, or are you building it with what you have?
I think we have to plan for what we have.
Okay.
What I'm looking into right now, and I'm trying to plan even farther ahead,
Right.
there's some models that use teacher assistants, where so a teacher assistant and a special education teacher could work together within 2 rooms, where the teacher assistant is in this room, special education teacher is in here, but they work together in their planning, and then they switch on the next day, so that there's some direct special education teacher instruction, and you're working with a TA. I want to see some of those models and what they look like. So I think we can get creative with it, with using some of our existing staff that we have. You know, if you did it 1 per grade level, it's just not that efficient. Like next year, we're predicting that we're going to have maybe 2 students in 1st grade that go out of the classroom. So is it efficient for a co-taught classroom for 1 or 2 students? To have a special education teacher in there all day for 1 or 2 students?
Right.
Probably not. It's probably not, you know, I wouldn't be able to justify that. But is there a way we could model that so they're working in a couple of grade levels using a TA or some other way?
And this model could potentially free up some support staff to meet the needs in other areas throughout the district.
Yep. And
It's really tricky in the high school.
Yeah.
Because you've got kids taking electives and,
Yeah.
you know, someone's taking algebra and someone's taking, you know, different math. It's tricky.
Yeah. My other question was, my sense was that you found virtual annual meetings to be very effective last year and
Yeah.
almost better attended. What's your percentage of in-person and virtual meetings this year?
They're all virtual right
They're
now.
all virtual?
Yep, we're still staying with that model while we're in this COVID phase. We have a very small CSE conference room.
Yeah,
I can't
yeah.
imagine 12 people in there. We
Yeah.
just wouldn't do that.
Okay.
And this is effective. When
Yeah.
things lighten up, we'll give parents the option
Okay.
if they want to come in or if we.
Okay. But it's working still.
Have you had any
Absolutely.
blowback to that?
I've had 2 parents ask for a face-to-face
Okay.
in the year and a half or so we've been doing it.
And you're able to accommodate them if that's,
We've been telling parents, they can come in, sit in the CSE conference room, we can have a special education teacher right next to them in that
Yeah.
room. I could even sit in there with them.
yeah, so a smaller group in
They
person.
could, but I
and then-
can't have the whole team in there.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. We're also looking at expanding our speech language pathologists for next year. Right now, we have 1.6 speech language, and those 1.6 are fully committed special education students. There's no room in their schedule for anyone else. Our thought is that, and Robin Dunning, who's our full-time speech pathologist here, has always wanted to be able to push into the pre-K and the K to catch the kids really early, before they get behind, to help the teacher with some of the strategies that she can use within the classroom. Pushing into those rooms, possibly doing some RTI work with those kids, pulling them out if they need, before we refer them to special education. Quite often, our kids that qualify for speech are in and out of special education in a year or 2. Why not just get ahead of it, do some RTI support? They never will qualify for speech. We don't have to go to that next level. So it's not necessarily a disability, just it's articulation, it's minor problems that can be corrected. So that would enable us to do that. And they're bursting at the seams at 1.6. They are completely full. We get a couple more kids. That's good. I won't add any more to that. Is there any other questions?
Well, I could come up with.
I can answer them.
Thank you. Matt?
Yeah, really just 2 general topics. First, budget-wise, we're into budget season officially. The governor had her State of the State address earlier this week. Typically, the executive budget proposal will follow that shortly thereafter. So within the next week or so, we anticipate an executive budget proposal for the state for 22-23, which would include our first state aid runs. Since this governor's been in office, the tenor seems to be a little bit more positive than it has been in past years in terms of general support for public education, and then also for fiscal support. So there still seems to be a commitment to really focus on foundation aid, which, as I've said year after year, we are fully funded already. So it's great in the grand scheme of things, and as long as there's some sort of hold harmless provision for those districts that are fully funded, that they get some sort of incremental increase annually, we'll be in good shape. So as we get into the legislative session and we talk about advocacy, we'll certainly keep that in mind and make sure we're focused on where we need to be. As the other team members have alluded to, we've had department head meetings for what we call our preliminary budget discussions already. So these sort of suggested changes in programming, we've had this early discussions from a budget perspective. Really, at the end of the day, there's serious budget impacts on this. We're talking about shuffling of staffing and with resources, there is a budget impact. So, the real key for next year and really the following year is going to be the utilization of all the federal funds and the coronavirus relief funds that we have access to. As I told these folks, things aren't getting any easier on the expense side of things. Things continue to escalate significantly. Costs of employee benefits are going up tremendously. But, you know, as of right now, it doesn't look like we should have any real significant problems because of these other funds that are just a bigger pool of resources. So it's just going to be sort of a real detailed exercise in balancing the use of those federal funds to make sure we can do what we want to do. So probably at the February board meeting, I'll certainly have a draft of our tax cap calculation, which is important, and probably a first general run of sort of a rollover budget. We'll have a sense of where we're going. So more to come in February. We'll schedule copies. We'll have to decide how and when we want to do those. We'll certainly do those. To what extent people are interested will be seen. With regard to the capital project, phase 2, I feel like it's been about 3 months in a row now. I've said the same thing. We're still in phase 2, which is our door and hardware replacement. There's some glass work that needs to be done on some of the glass on the new doors. That's going to take place in the next couple weeks. We have 8 doors that are just jammed up with supply chain issues. We have 3 that are supposed to ship later this month or early February, and 5 that it's unknown when we will get them. So again, we're starting to feel that pinch a little bit with phase 2. With phase 3, we're hopeful that we don't get pinched too bad with that kind of thing. Just to remind you of the timeline, we had our pre-bid meeting with contractors earlier this week. We had 6 or 8 contractors that were here. King & King and Construction Associates led that meeting, talked about expectations as we prepare for bid openings. They took a tour of the building, were able to see areas that are going to be worked on if they wanted to. And bids are due, and bids will be opened on February 1st. So we're moving right along. And then if all goes well, the plan is to award those bids, for you to award those bids at our regular board meeting on February 10th. So we're moving right along. One more thing related to the capital project. I know when Paul presented here, and then also when the renderings of phase 3 were presented to the faculty and staff as well, there were some common questions that arose with regard to safety, specifically with some of the areas where we're adding class. Last week, Brian DeRoshi, who is the New York State Police Community Outreach
School
coordinator for the schools, used to be our resource officer here. He's very familiar with the community and the building. We had him come visit. We gave him a set of the renderings. We kind of walked him through them, and then actually walked to the actual sites so he could look at that and get his assessment. He's taken those with him, and he wants to look at them more closely. But his initial reaction to the work that's going to be done, and the specific areas that he was looking at was the LGI, the glass on the corridor, and then the glass work up in the high school library, was he didn't feel that there was any major concern. He felt that it provided a good balance of sort of that hardening and the comfort and aesthetics of a comfortable learning setting. Exterior glass, he said, is really not an issue. He said that really doesn't come into play when there are incidents. He did say the LGI glass that's facing the corridor, he said there are things post-installation that you can do that can always help, whether it's putting in shades or some sort of tinting, so the visibility in or out is altered. And he said he could certainly work with us on that. Really, Brian is in basically every school in the region, and he said that even with the updates, the additional glass work that we're pursuing, it's still much better than some places. So he said there are places that have just opened right up or are completely visible. And so he felt that this was a good balance. And if there is still some concern after installation, we can do some post-installation measures, so that's sort of reassuring.
Great. Thank you for running it by him. That's
Yeah, because that was an area, I know Ellen, you raised it, and I had concern too. I'm very comfortable with what we just.
Yeah, and we asked some pretty pointed questions. I know, forgive me, I don't remember if it was this meeting or among the faculty and staff, but bulletproof glass was brought up, and Paul was talking about it, and Brian just shut that right down. He said, no, it's not practical, it's not off the table, so, yeah, he was very practical about it, and certainly up to speed with trends, and there's nobody better, I don't think, to consult for that kind of thing.
That's what was my thought.
Yeah.
And he's also going to provide to us some suggestions on district-level security measures based on some intel and some threat assessments that the state police have done as far as school threats of violence. So I think that'll be helpful for us.
Good? Yes.
So right before Christmas break, we had an uptick in the number of cases that we were seeing within our district. And there were some questions from community members on why haven't you closed? Why haven't you suspended athletics? So I want to publicly talk about why we did not close and why we did not suspend athletics. We are in constant consultation with our medical director and the Department of Health. And Betsy Marcellus, our school nurse, we have those consultations daily, and especially before break when we did see an uptick. And our medical director assured us that there was no reason to close school, and there was no reason to cancel athletics. We have been steadfast as a leadership team and as a district to do everything in our power to keep school open for in-person learning. And when our medical director gives us the okay to stay open and says it's okay to play athletics, as long as you have a number of athletes to field teams, continue to play, continue to provide opportunities for kids, with mitigation strategies, obviously. So that is the reason we did not close, and we will remain open until the point where our medical director says you should close school, or we don't have the staffing to cover classes with substitutes. So we're going to stay steadfast in that. We heard loud and clear last year from our community that school should be open, and we believe that school should be open. We want kids in school in front of our experts teaching and learning and providing growth for our students. So that is the reason, and we're going to continue that. And our discussions with the Department of Health, if you look, they have now changed our quarantine and isolation from 10 days to 5 days. So the push, even from the governor and their state of the state and our state level meetings, the governor is telling schools stay open. Kids should be in school. So all of the measures right now are pushing towards schools staying open. And with that, there's been some questions from faculty and staff about moving from a 10-day to a 5-day isolation for positive cases. What does that mean for COVID Leave Act? Because right now, if you have a standing order of quarantine, you're eligible for COVID leave, which you can, you have paid leave under that, which is 10 days. But right now, with the isolation moved to 5 days, the question rose, was the Leave Act then going to be reduced to 5 days? And the answer is no. Right now, the COVID Leave Act is still 10 days, even though the isolation is at 5 days. And you still have to go under the standing orders of the Department of Health. So we will require documentation, and we're going to trust our employees who have a 5-day isolation documentation. After 5 days, if they're still showing symptoms, we don't want them back in the building.
Right.
So we're going to trust that they are saying, I still don't feel well, I need to stay home, you're still eligible for the COVID leave up to 10 days. So that's where we stand with that. We have received, you've seen my correspondence about our at-home test kits. We continue to receive allotments from the Department of Health and from BOCES through the state. We'll continue to push those out to families to be testing at home if you're symptomatic. Use those tests. There are some questions about why aren't you sending them home with students. It clearly states, and we have directions from BOCES and the Department of Health, they should not be put in in the hands of students to be sent home. Right now, they're hard to come by, and right now, they should be given to parents to then distribute to their kids for at-home tests. So we are not giving them to students to take home. We'll continue to have parents come pick them up, and if a parent can't make it, they can call our school nurse to make special arrangements for a time to be picked up, or if you need a family member or a friend to pick them up, we'll release them to an adult, but we're not going to release them to students.
How's the supply of that? How many are you getting?
We have an abundance of at-home test kits right now, so at our state level meeting today, we are told that we're going to get another shipment next week of a full, what we originally got was 280 test kits. Last week we got half a shipment. We just got another box from the Assemblyman's office, so we're pretty well stocked.
Good spot.
So we'll continue to put out correspondence to families, and if you need a test kit, make arrangements and we'll get them to you.
Are a lot of people taking advantage of that, or
Um,
not as many as we'd like?
Not as many as we'd like.
Are families limited? That's the part I'm confused about.
So
If you get another shipment, will it be another email saying,
Yes.
or saying shipments come in?
Yep,
Even
yep.
if you got the kit
even if you have a
before?
kit, yep, because we have had families reach out and say, can we have more and more and more and more and
Right.
more? They're testing their kids every day. Well, that's not the intent of those kits. The intent of those kits are to test if symptoms arise, so you can do an at-home test kit, and then if you're not feeling well, the trip's positive, then reach out to your primary care, reach out to Betsy to report, and then start your isolation procedures. Okay. Let me just share with you from our state or our Department of Health call this morning some statistics countywide. There's 142 new cases as of today. 7-day average is 125. There's 475 active cases in the county right now, with 18 current hospitalizations. Rate of new cases in the past 7 days in Madison County, 1,224 new cases. New York State average right now, rate of new cases in the past 7 days is 2,000 new cases. Percent positivity, 7-day percent positivity for Madison County is up to 16.8%. New York State average is 20.2. So we're under the state average, but it's still high. Vaccination rates, the county is still struggling with getting people vaccinated. They continue to ask us to push and encourage people to be vaccinated. We'll continue to put out where the vaccination clinics are and encourage people to become vaccinated. Right now, 18 plus population with at least one dose is 83%.
Our population, you saying?
County,
Madison County.
Madison County. Percent of the total population with at least one dose is 74%. Percent of total population with a completed series is at 69%. And this is where it really drops off. The percent of 5 to 11-year-olds is only at 29.5% vaccination rate. But that's on par with the region and the state, unfortunately. Percent of 12 to 17-year-olds is 65%. So that is the state of COVID in our county. Matt talked about our security assessment. We hope to get those recommendations from Trooper DeRoshi sometime in February, that we can then start looking at what we can do as a district to enhance our security of the building. That said, we've had our preliminary budget meetings. We are brainstorming on ways to become more efficient, to deliver services in a different way, as we always do, thinking outside the box, and how we can use our federal money to offset some of our general budget challenges. So we're continuing to do that. We've met with all of our department heads, and we'll continue to do that, and have a fiscally sound budget ready to present to you when the time comes. I want to take this time to give an athletics update from Emily.
I was actually, Mark, can you go check on the thing?
Yeah, we're gonna check.
Thank you. I think that might be half time.
Oh,
2 minutes left in the second quarter.
Are you watching?
take it.
So winter sports are at the halfway point of the season. Varsity basketball will have their seeding meetings on February 16th. The boys varsity basketball team is currently 9-0, and the boys JV is 9-1. The girls varsity basketball team is 7-2, and the JV is 5-1, all having very successful seasons. Modified boys and girls basketball practice started their seasons on January 3rd, with games starting on January 15th. Preparations are in place for organizing spring sports and developing spring sports schedules. Those should be finalized by February 15th. Continued thanks to the board and administration for their support of athletics. Thank you to our custodial staff for making sure our facilities are ready for games, transportation department for driving our teams for away games, and Mrs. Marcel's for ensuring the health of our student athletes. So a huge shout out to our transportation department, because we have not had an athletic contest canceled or postponed due to driver shortage, which many other districts have. And again, many schools have had to go remote because of driver shortages. We have not. So we are very, very fortunate.
We got time for 4 half. I'm still in the first half, that's good. We got time.
Questions for
Score's
me?
looking good.
This could be a math question, but the federal funds, I remember you saying the grant process is kind of complicated and very detailed. Have you run into, either of you, any difficulties accessing those federal funds?
We've had, so there's really been 4 rounds. 3 of the 4 have been approved. Our budgets have been approved. The last one, which was the state reserves for summer and after school and the 5% learning loss. That was the last round. It was due in November. We haven't heard yet on those. I don't remember the exact date. I believe the state has until something like March 23rd to meet the federal requirements for state reporting. So all these federal funds get distributed to the states, and all of this reporting and these applications are very specific for the state to meet these federal requirements. So, you submit it, and it just goes in a queue, and for example, the CIRSA 2 application, which was the Coronavirus Relief Act, it was due September 30th, and I was in a meeting with business officials the first week in November, and somebody said that theirs had gotten tossed back with an error, and I knew that I made the same error, but I hadn't even gotten it sent. It hadn't even been reviewed yet, so I called state ed. They didn't even have a reviewer assigned to our application yet, so I asked them to unsubmit it. I corrected it, we submitted it. So it's really, who knows?
So is life, right?
Yeah, it's tough.
Good luck.
Yeah.
That's all.
Hearing the elementary.
Me, you. I can't remember what our last meeting was in terms of our last board meeting, but the primary topic was the report card surveys and going through and sort of laying out those surveys and getting that all ready to go. And then I would say the other thing that we talked about was how to get more parents involved and working through the PTO, to get more parents involved. So even if parents are not actively involved with the PTO, they can contact the PTO if they're interested in being involved in the elementary steering committee to get more parent input. So I think those are the 2 big things.
Yep. And actually, I talked to a member of the PTO today who's going to publicize that for us, so that's great. And then I'm really excited for the next steering team because we have 2 5th grade students that are going to come and present to us and talk about their ideas for our school. So
Awesome.
yes.
Secondary is
Second is Dave Corey, yeah.
actual, secondary.
Yeah, the last time we met, we looked at some feedback on the course document that I shared with you guys before. And we made some edits to the slides, moved some things around, and talked about, what's the most important information for parents or students, and then trying to make that document as user-friendly as possible. We added a user feedback piece to it as well. And then this week, I've reached out to the teachers just to make sure that all the links are the proper sharing so that anybody out on the internet can see them. You have to make sure you click the right thing on the drop down or else it'll be dead links. So the teachers were going through that and we're pretty much set there. And then it's going to be posted on the website and then have that space to receive even more feedback.
Emerald Foundation update is, I mean, we kind of had it. Andrew's no longer a part of the Emerald Foundation, so he was done in December. Matt Haynes has taken over the reins. There's monthly meetings scheduled from here on calendars, and they're working on a whole bunch of things, but there was one application that was sent in, request for money, that was delayed because of the transition, so they'll be working on that, and the meeting was supposed to be Monday, now it's next week, so. But it's a good group, and they are ready to give it a go without Andrew, so exciting. Knowledge share. Just, I guess my biggest is to remind everybody to be reading the book. We have a meeting in March.
So that's in March.
It's in March. And I find it a slow read. I don't know about anybody else, but and only because there's so much data in it that I can't just skim it. I feel like you're getting it, so I feel like it's a slow read, so it's taking me a while. But just a reminder of that. And then advocacy updates.
I have lots of dates to throw out there to try to encourage attendance at. So our BOCES is doing their legislative forum. It's going to be virtual this year, so there's no excuse. Wednesday, January 26th at 6 o'clock is going to be with the New York State Senators. And then the next night, Thursday, January 27th, also at 6 o'clock, is going to be with the Assembly. So any questions you have, you can send to me and I can send them over to BOCES. If you have specific, they usually come up with a whole bunch of questions and it gets reviewed. But if you have anything you want to add to that, let me know. And then they just announced that the 2022 NISBA Lobby Day has moved virtually as well. So that's going to be February 9th from 8 to 4. You do need to register, and then they'll set up they'll assign your people to you, and then you can set up virtual meetings with those. So that's our opportunity if we have any direct one-on-one questions with our legislative members. It's our opportunity. And then the virtual Capitol Conference is going to be February 2nd from 8:30 to 12:45. Again, that's online. It was super helpful last year. They actually take the budget proposal and break it down. They have a lot of different people talking. There's a lot of sessions with like the state legislator and different education leaders. And it was really helpful last year to have me understand a lot of this stuff. So, and that you also do need to register online. So, lots of opportunities. And to just piggyback off Matt, what he said is, the governor gave the State of the State address, and there's a booklet that's like 200 and something pages, so have fun reading that if you'd like. I started and I was like, yeah, then I just started like Control F and figuring out what I wanted. Yeah. So, but that is available too, if anybody wants to skim through that. So it's a prime time for advocacy. As Matt said, they're putting that budget together, so now's our time to really dig in with our government officials.
Thank you. BOCES update isn't on here, but I'm on the BOCES board.
Right, thank
Oh,
you.
yeah.
So there's that, and there's really no update other than that.
How's the food?
So there's food every meeting, and there's little cups of chocolate on the table every time I walk in the room, which is my favorite part. But, so, there's that. We had a meeting last night, it was just a general meeting, there's no hot topics other than what people have said, but with information from the state, so. But if anybody has questions or whatnot, let me know, and bring them along.
Thank you again for
Oh,
doing that, too.
they are doing their budget and they'll be here, whenever they're usually here.
I think it was the March.
March,
14th.
I think they're here in March, so I got a preview of that, so I can actually sleep through the one in March, because I've already seen it, no, I'm just kidding. So it was helpful just to see the percentage differences. Everything's pretty much the same. No real big surprises, so there's that. And that brings us to public participation. If you have anything, please come forward. Remember the 3-minute timeline. And there's nothing online.
Michelle, I have one more thing while we're waiting.
Okay, that's good. If you have anything, please add it online while Bill has this moment here.
So I've done some work coordinating an inclusivity advisory committee in preparation for our board workshop on our DEI policy, which is next week, the 20th. So we have 12 members of the community who have agreed to serve on this committee, and I'll just share what the purpose of the committee is: to ensure that HCS is a learning environment where students, families, and staff feel a sense of acceptance, connectedness, and validation, a place where diversity and differences are viewed as strengths. So they're going to help guide us as we look at our system structures, policies, regulations, experiences related to inclusivity of our student body. So it's a great group that is very willing to help steer us through our DEI work this year. So I'm excited about that.
Did you send them our update from our meeting the other day?
Tomorrow.
Okay. So when you send that copy to me, and I'll send it to the board. Bill and I went through what our plan is for the meeting next week.
Okay, good.
So everybody will have that ahead of time. Everybody needs to read the policy ahead of time, so that will be attached to the email. And then we'll have a game plan for that.
And you're sending that out before this weekend?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
We should get on
Yeah,
that.
go up
Please,
tomorrow.
thank
Are you
you.
gonna include,
Yeah.
are you going to include the, like, the charge from the state, like what?
I am, and I'm going to include a couple sample policies for them to look at, because that will be the main focus of the 20th workshop is to give direction for our policy committee.
We are not writing policy next week.
No,
Right.
no,
We are
We're not
discussing.
voting on anything, we're not.
correct.
We are
We're-
discussing ways to enhance and have an appropriate policy for our division or for our district, but we are not writing it next week. So, but that will come out tomorrow at some point.
Yes.
And then I'll send it to you guys. If you have questions, just let us know.
And that is an in-person meeting,
It is.
Yes.
and it is a public meeting.
Yes.
Will it be or will it be streamed?
We don't typically.
Do that at workshops, so,
So no.
okay, so in-person, public, not streamed, and it's a workshop, so
It's a workshop, so no public discussion except for our invited guests,
Mhm.
because they are guests of our meeting.
And I'll put on board that.
And Bill, thank you for putting all that work
Sure.
into developing that team. It's
Yeah,
pretty
thank
exciting.
you.
It was very helpful.
Yes, it will. Yeah.
Great team.
Still no comments. Nobody here, nobody online, so.
They're all thinking.
I know, right? It looks like halftime's over, because the team was over there, I could see them through the window.
Yeah.
So thank you, everybody. A special thanks to the staff and the entire staff, all of you, everybody who's not in this room, for all you do every day, day in, day out, to make sure that our students can come to this building, feel safe, and learn. Because deep down, that's what we are, right? To educate students every day. And so we thank you for doing that and for putting your best foot forward, even when you don't feel good, or when you have to take over somebody else's job because they don't feel good. It really means a lot, and the fact that the kids come home, or at least I can talk about mine, mine come home and it's normal. Like life is normal for them right now when it comes to school, and it's really it's really heartwarming and really special. So I know that your days are stressful. I know that the work that goes behind the scenes to all the teachers, the bus drivers, the maintenance staff sucks, frankly, right? On a lot of occasions, but what you do matters. So keep digging and keep going through it, because we appreciate you and all you're doing, and so do the kids. And they are smiling under there. So keep it up, and hopefully each day and each week gets a little bit better. I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Discussion. I just always find that anything to ask. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
We have cake for Mr. Rogers.
That's right.
All right.